this side, and maybe it hits the ladies more directly as opposed to hitting me. That's better. Maybe a little bit more. Yep. This way. I think that'll be great. Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Woo, it's a hot, hot, steamy afternoon. Welcome to the closing Charles Ogletree Public Forum of the summer season, hosted by the Union Chapel Education and Cultural Institute. My name is Karen Holmes Ward, recently of Hearst Television's WCVB ABC TV in Boston. Yay! Let's hear it for Channel 5. I, along with Richard Taylor, have been proud to convene these forums each summer in the name of Charles Ogletree, respected jurist, civil rights advocate, and mentor and friend, to many known just as Tree. You will all recall that Professor Ogletree held similar public forums on topics of the day at the high school. Well, upon Tree's transition at Richard's suggestion, and with enthusiastic support from Pam Ogletree, our Union Chapel Institute forums became the Charles Ogletree Public Forum Series. Let's hear it for Tree. Martha's Vineyard is a very busy place in August. Have you noticed? The traffic is crazy. The lines are long. There's so much going on and so many tickets to buy to get into these fabulous events. Well, the Union Chapel Ogletree Forums have always been and will continue to be open to the public and free. We do it with generous sponsor support. This year's lead sponsors are the Martha's Vineyard Museum. Our annual lead sponsor is Boston Medical Center Health System, and my company, Hearst Television. Let's have a round of applause for our sponsors. And if you or your company would like to be a sponsor for this very essential summer series, we would love to have you. Now, tonight's forum expands on a tradition that Richard and I started a few years ago. That is organizing at least one forum each summer to explore topics of interest in the media space. We expanded on that a few years back after a conversation on an afternoon porch party. Then President of the National Association of Black Journalists, Dorothy Tucker, my good friend Allison Davis, a producer at the network, and Rahema Ellis, who you'll meet shortly. We all thought it would be impactful to pull in the support of the National Association of Black Journalists as collaborators on our media forum, and so the connection was made. Thank you. Tonight, we are anticipating that the conversation, Truth Under Fire, Defending Black Women Journalists and Freedom of the Press, will be intense, eye-opening, and soul-stirring. With that, I turn the mic over to tonight's moderator, friend and colleague, Rahema Ellis, former chief education correspondent for NBC News.
Ain't she something? Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I am Rahema Ellis, and I am tickled to be here with you. One of the things I was thinking about is this guy, and before I say that, I want to make certain that I said thank you to Karen publicly, because were it not for her, I would not be here. I also want to thank the folks here at the chapel for doing the wonderful presentations that they do. It's marvelous. A guy went into his office not so long ago, and he was wearing his wife's glasses. And his coworkers said to him, I could probably do this without the mic. They didn't say that. I said that. They said to him, why do you have on your wife's glasses? He said, well, she wants me to see things her way. Now, after you chuckle, think about it. The lens through which you see the world depends on the world that you see. We're celebrating America's founding. And 250 years ago, a man named Thomas Paine wrote a little pamphlet, and it was called Common Sense. But he wrote it and published it anonymously because he criticized Great Britain and he criticized the king, King George III, and they did not like that. It was a crime. He could be arrested, he could be jailed, and who knows what might have happened to him after that. That 47-page pamphlet marshaled the colonies, and they decided, yes, among other things, that this is a reason why we should separate from Great Britain. We should separate from the king. When the founding fathers made the decision, it is time, and as conflicted as those white men were, they were smart enough and brilliant enough to make the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And they said that no law Congress can pass that would abridge the freedoms of press. Why? They understood that it was important for the media, that journalists, to ask questions, that it was important for the media, for journalists, to hold the feet to the fire of the people who were elected to do what? To serve the people. And they understood that if you did not protect that, the Constitution was going to, and this thing called freedom of the press would be one of the components that would help to prevent America from morphing from a democracy back into a dictatorship. And truth is under fire. And defending black women, journalists, and the freedom of the press is what we're going to talk about. But I want you to focus your attention on the screen to my right, and my left. Because one of the things I love about coming to the Vineyard is that everybody here is so doggone smart, and you are well informed, and you are engaged. But I want to really focus your attention on why we are here. What is it that has crystallized our thinking about black women journalists being under attack? Please watch the monitors so that you might see this. Technology. Recognize that face?
We have a ballroom that's under budget. It's going up right here. I've doubled the size of it because we obviously need that. And we're right now on budget, under budget, and ahead of schedule. I doubled the size of it, you dumb person. Double the size. You are not a smart person.
The president is facing increasing public scrutiny over the cost of his projects across Washington, D.C. and here at the White House.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quick. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands. then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
You play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap.
So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. Same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up. I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She gets publicity, and then she gets a pay raise, or she gets a contract with, I think, CNN. But she's very nasty.
I want to bring up our panelists, including the award-winning author and journalist April Ryan. Ladies, would you join me on the stage? April Ryan, Joy Reid, join me on the stage. Aaron Haynes, join me. And Christina Greer, please join me. In television news, we call that a cold open. It leads to a hot response, right? One of the things that I want to start off with, April, is letting everybody know some of your kudos. Host of the Tea for the Contrarian, Substack, MS Now contributor, an award-winning correspondent and author, and known for asking the hard and persistent questions. That's you. Erin Haynes is president of the National Association of Black Journalists, editor-at-large, The 19th. Her reporting and analysis of politics and social justice issues frequently appears on national television, and she is a very outspoken person, and the NABJ has been having a little heat lately, but you can handle it. That's Erin Hayes. Next to her, another amazing woman. I don't even know if I need to say anything, but I am going to say something. This is Joy Ann Reid. Award-winning journalist, author, host of the Joy Reid Show podcast on YouTube and Substack, author of several books, and renowned for, again, also her insightful political commentary. Joy Reid. And to help give us a political perspective, if we are lacking in one, it will profoundly come from Christina Greer, professor of political science, Fordham University, co-host of FAQ NYC podcast, and author, Christina Greer. After all of that you saw in just a minute and 40 seconds, you think somebody would write a book about this kind of thing. Uh-oh, guess what? Somebody did. And it is April Ryan. It is called Under Fire. And she devoted one chapter in her book to becoming the story. I did my homework.
Yes, you did.
I am a journalist.
I was going to say.
In here, on page 46, April writes, I continue to go back to the White House and do my job. The job I've been doing for more than 2 decades. I've done nothing that I've been doing, as I said, I've done nothing wrong. And this is the part that I focused in on because of this conversation. And I'm covered by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I'm sure that when the Founding Fathers drafted this pillar for our nation, they had no idea there would be a white press corps, let alone they had no idea there would be a White House press corps with a black woman as a member. The Constitution, she says, is what I rely on and what will keep me going back doing my job. April Ryan. The first question for you is, besides this being something that makes your blood boil, and it had to at that time, I want to know, in real time, go take us back to when you were really under fire by President Trump and what it felt like in your gut.
Yeah, Erin is absolutely right. Rahima, thank you so much. I'm still under fire. That video is triggering. I have been diagnosed with, and I'm not ashamed to tell it, and I'm free from it, but I've been through too much not to tell the story.
Tell it.
I've been diagnosed with chronic and acute post-traumatic stress disorder because of the first term. There are things that you don't know, you may have read about, it's true. Bombs coming to my house, the bomb squad, the FBI. I got pictures of the bomb squad at our house. We had to move our home, and I don't take no stuff anymore from anybody because I've been through too much. And see, what happened in the first term, they wanted to change the narrative and lie on me. And the second term, they feel like, oh, we don't need her. They don't put me in the pool. However, I have to be strategic when I go to that place because every time I go in there, they're waiting for me. They want to fight. And what I'm not going to do is lower myself in that sacred space that our ancestors built to fight them. But I take the fight, right, I take the fight higher. And see, like my husband said to me, he said, you are a target, and if they get you, they win. So I have to be very strategic in where I show up, when I show up, how I show up, and not to allow anyone to lie on me, to change the narrative, because that's what they do. And they pull in people that you would least expect to do their bidding. And at the end of the day, how do I cover? I still cover. And you know what? One of the greatest things in the world is that I work for the Contrarian. And there is the New York Times called him the Attorney General for the Resistance, Norm Eisen. And you might have seen him. He's won a lot of cases in the U.S. Supreme Court this session. He's the lawyer for the Olympic swimmer who touched the water in the reflecting pool. He's fighting to keep Trump's name off of the Kennedy Center with Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. He also won the birthright citizenship case in the Supreme Court this session. And we don't hear a lot about the wins, but one thing I'm so glad about, I have truth and receipts on my side. And a new book coming out October 6th.
Tell 'em. Okay, let 'em know.
Called, we're doing a pre-order campaign right now, Notes on a Blacklash, when black women go viral. So get that now. But either way, Norm said, if you need me, I'm there. So I walk in peace knowing that I can ask those questions from the First Amendment when I show up, and someone's got my back.
You're here. Forgive me if I go to Joy, because Joy is someone who has been very publicly called out by President Trump. He called for you to be fired. He called you all kinds of names, which I'm not going to repeat. Tell us what it's like, besides the fact that you are a public person, and yet you are a person, you are a human being. What does it feel like to be attacked by the man who's in the highest elected office in the land?
Well, first of all, I want to say it is always wonderful to see you, Rahima.
Likewise.
One of my absolute favorite people at NBC, and when we were there together, working together, you were just a joy always to be around, so it's just a blessing to see you. And I want to thank the organizers of this event for having us in this beautiful place. It's a privilege to be among these incredible women. And, you know, I think about when Ruby Freeman testified, she was just doing her job as a poll worker, something she had done, she and her daughter, Shay Moss, had done as a part of their civic duty. You don't make a lot of money doing that. And her testimony stays with me when she says, there's nothing like the President of the United States, the chief executive of this country, personally attacking you. There's just nothing, there's nothing that compares to that. You know, this is the awesome power of the presidency of the United States being directed at an individual citizen. It's so unusual, it has almost never happened. That's how unusual it is. And the way that Donald Trump deals with the press, particularly with female journalists, particularly with female journalists of color, is unique in all of U.S. history since, you know, McKinley brought the press into the White House. And so, you know, it is an unusual experience, and it is an experience that comes with his fans. He has a cult of personality, and when he speaks, they respond, meaning you get the threats, you get the attacks. They attack because he sends a signal to them that what he says means they are also triggered to attack you. So it's not as if just one person, you know, shading you on social media. I don't care about that. I used to fight on Twitter all the time. I had no problem with it. I know. I don't do it. Maybe not on that platform. Maybe not on that platform. I do it on other platforms. But I got off of Twitter when the white South African bought it. But I didn't want to be in his neighborhood. But it's just different when the sort of power of the presidency is trained at you. But at this point, I really don't expect more from him. You know, I wrote a book about Donald Trump back in 2016, so I had to do, you know, the research of talking with a lot of people who know him. This is who he is. Now just unrestrained because of the ongoing deterioration of his brain. As he's getting older, and honestly, with potentially dementia and all these other things, he's sundowning, and so he now can't control himself. And whereas in the first term, he was nasty, but at least somewhat under self-control, he's now out of control. So what I'm concerned for is not myself. I'm not concerned. I'm a big girl. I'm used to taking attacks. Again, I used to be very much on social media. What I'm concerned for is the country, because I think what he's exhibiting in these attacks is an increasing unhinged nature and an inability to literally control himself, literally an inability to control his mind. And from a national security perspective, I think that the media is utterly failing to interrogate that. I think they're utterly failing to interrogate what that means for our national security. If I'm an enemy of the United States and I see an emotionally and cognitively deteriorating president of the United States, I'm going to take full advantage of it. And that's the thing that concerns me most.
It makes me want to go right to Aaron Hayes, President of the National Association of Black Journalists. Do you see it that way? These attacks on individual black women are personal, but is it just personal?
Absolutely not. And let me just, wait, can y'all hear me? Yes? No. Thank you, April. No. Let me first say, what she is describing and what she is describing, that is not part of the job description. That is not what comes with what it means to be a journalist. We are talking about holding power to account, speaking truth to power, asking questions on behalf of the American people. That is what these women are doing each and every single day, and the women that were in that video, right? And what do they get for that? They get disrespect, they get disparagement, they get dismissal. Why? Because they are trying to hold power to account. But guess what? We are powerful too. And we are using that power on behalf of the American people because they need us to ask the questions. To ask the questions. That is what they are doing. And so to be retaliated against simply for doing your job, it matters when that is normalized, right, from the highest levels of our government. Because what does that mean? That is a permission structure for that to happen to our local journalists in communities across this country. It is a permission structure for that. I see a lot of y'all are in here today. You don't have to be a black journalist to care about what's happening to black journalists. That is what is affirming for me as I look out across this room, because you all know what it means. When this is allowed to happen to these black women journalists, whose workplace could this happen in? This is a workplace issue at the end of the day. And these black women are being disrespected in their workplace. So what does it mean to normalize and to say that that is okay? It is absolutely not okay, and he may not be able to do better. But NABJ is, we're in a chapel, so we're darn sure gonna make sure that we say that it is not okay, because we cannot allow this to become normalized in our society when this man passes from the scene.
Christina, as the political scientist on this panel, talk to us about whether or not the president exhibits some measure of derangement, or these insults to black women journalists, can they be seen as a deliberate political strategy, or just off-the-cuff remarks? And either way, however you perceive them, what impact does that have on our politics?
So, one, thank you all for coming on a beautiful day to hear us talk about some problems and solutions. And two, I want to just thank Karen, and I know him as Uncle Richie. You all know him as Richard Taylor, but I really appreciate you all putting this together. So when we think about, April started with the Constitution, Article 2 of the Constitution is the executive branch. Article 1 is the legislative branch. When the framers were putting this together, they really didn't think much about the executive branch because it was supposed to be a very small portion of the conversation. They're running away from the corruption of the king, and so they don't want to replicate that system. That's why they took the majority of the time to really think through the legislative body. So over time, the role of the presidency has expanded. And I don't know if you've ever met white men. Once they get power, they tend to not give it back. So over time, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the bureaucracy keeps growing larger and larger. We have never had a president, a modern-day president. When I say modern day, I go from essentially Kennedy to the present. We've never had a president who has this level of corruption. He's making Richard Nixon look like a Boy Scout. We've never had a president with this level of bureaucratic incompetence, right? So every accusation is a confession. When he says that these women are, low IQ, it's because the people around him are low IQ. When he says that the Democrats are corrupt and they're cheating, it's because the Republicans are cheating, or at least attempting to cheat. So the expansion of the office is highly problematic just in a larger American democratic sphere. The larger problem that Joy touched on is that he is aided and abetted by people who are sycophants and allowing this to happen as the most powerful person in the country and used to be in the world. So when we think about the decision-making skills, or lack thereof, we are in a very dangerous predicament, right? The 350,000 black women that were coincidentally fired when a non-American decided to come in and cut jobs from our government, that's deliberate. That's not accidental. The jobs that are cut are deliberate. where they affect black families and black communities disproportionately. That's deliberate. So the cognitive decline of the president is real, sure, but what I'm really disgusted by, because Donald Trump is just one man, but he is supported by thousands of incompetent people who are allowing this to happen.
You can applaud. Christine, I'm going to stay with you for just a second because I wonder, are there any historical tropes around black women that you think the president is either accidentally or deliberately employing in this assault on black women journalists?
Well, yeah, I mean, you all have seen the news report. He and his father were sued, it was in the New York Times many, many years ago for obviously charging black families more and not giving them goods and services. They were essentially slumlords in Queens, if you know anything about New York City. The reason why he starts his own country clubs is because the Manhattan folks did not allow the Trumps to be a part of any of their clubs. That's why they have to start their own clubs. The sort of Manhattan, Fifth Avenue crowds just thought that they were, low-life people. And so he's been very clear, if you look at old interviews of him, he thinks that, Jewish people control money, black people are criminals, Latinos are rapists, women are there to just serve men. I mean, these are tropes that he has always had. And so now that he's the president and he is surrounded by some of the most incompetent people. We have reality stars running the country.
Yep.
And so I think we were lulled into a false sense, not all of us in here, we know better. Many people in America were lulled into a false sense of progress during the Obama era. I know they're on the island, but I'm still gonna say it. And so we did not, and we never have, gotten to the root of some of these problems as a nation, and the disrespect of black women in general.
April, tell me, why do you think that these insults that come from the president, they question both intelligence and professional credibility?
Number one, knowing this man as I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Number one, knowing this man as I do, he does not want anyone questioning his superiority in his cerebral cortex, okay? He doesn't want anyone challenging him because he believes what he says goes and that's it, and it's fact, and it's come down from God. But at the end of the day, that's one, but when it's a woman and then a woman of color, how dare we? He was abused as a child emotionally. His father believed in racism. His father believed in the superiority of the white male-dominant culture. So with that said, you have ABC's Rachel Scott being called the B word and told that I guess you don't like trash. I mean, I guess you like trash because you're asking about something else other than the trash. How do you associate and equate trash with a black woman and black womanhood? This man, as we talk about reality TV show people, he got finished with Omarosa and called her a dog. He's called me a loser. He's called Abby Phillips names. He's called Yamisha Alcindor names. We can go on and on and on. But I'm going to say this last piece. If you notice, and this is where you all come in, if you notice that when he berates black women, it's a sidebar.
Yeah.
But when he goes to Caitlin Collins or another white woman from CNN or another show, it becomes New York Times headlines. There is a problem there.
Yes.
There is a serious problem there because we bear more of the scars than they do. They get the sympathy. They get the public support. But we go home and we have to look behind our backs. We leave that White House, look around because people come after us. But when something happens to them, oh no. But with us, it's like, oh well.
Do you think, Aaron, that it matters? Do people see a distinction between the insults that the president hurls against black women journalists and other journalists? He's called women on the plane piggy, and he's called them fat. He's called them all kinds of names. Is there, I guess I'm wondering, is this stuff deliberate?
Look.
In your eyes?
Intent is not the point. The impact is the point. And whether or not they mean to do it, like there is a distinction. They are making a distinction when they are, to April's point, highlighting what is when this is happening to some women journalists versus when that happens to other women journalists. And what is the common theme? When this is happening to black journalists, yes, NABJ is calling this out, but who else is calling this out? Who else is saying that this is wrong? And so, yes, to April's point, that is why it is so important that all of you are here and that all of you are saying, using your voices and using your platforms to say, this is completely unacceptable. NABJ is going to continue to say that, regardless, and also calling out the lack of coverage that is not consistent, right? In how this is being discussed, because it matters. Again, because the media is now helping to normalize the treatment of these black women journalists if they don't care and if they ain't gonna call it out. I mean, these are their employees as well. So if you can't defend your employees, then why, what is the expectation for the rest of us to do that? That is why it is important for us to speak up about this.
If I can say something really fast, he did that Miss Piggy thing. They did a trial balloon in the first term. I forgot her name because she's the HUD. She was in the HUD, New Jersey HUD office. What's her name? I forgot. Anyway, she works in the White House now. Yeah. She called me Miss Piggy because I asked the president on Martin Luther King weekend, is he a racist? In 2018, are you a racist, Mr. President? And she called me Miss Piggy, and then she pulled it back because of public outrage. But now
that was in.
Yeah, and now this term, he's now using it. So they did the trial balloon first, but now instead of doing a black woman, they're calling white women Miss Piggy, the president himself.
Joy, I want to ask a question about this. Some have been writing and thought, could black women journalists go at this another way? Should black women journalists change the way that they ask questions? Should you massage the question? And I keep thinking, well, what is there to massage? You ask a question. But what do you say when folks ask, maybe you should be a little nicer to the president? I'm just asking a question.
My answer, I have heard people say that the journalists should change their approach. My answer to that is that we are not raising the president. His mama raised him. I'm not his mom. So I have a challenge with American journalism in general, in the sense is false deference to the President of the United States, who is our employee.
Hello.
Is completely inappropriate.
Yes.
If you listen to the way British media deals with their monarchs, they don't deal with them with the amount of breathless respect that we treat this man with. They certainly didn't apply that same ethic to Barack Hussein Obama. Routinely, the president would be referred to as Obama. They never referred to Donald Trump as Trump. He's always, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, Mr. President. Oh, Mr. President, please, Mr. President, can't you stay for one more question, Mr. President? This deference is inappropriate. He does not respect journalists. Journalists should treat him as they are being treated. And I have a challenge with the other journalists in the room when April's being disrespected, or Rachel Scott is being disrespected, or any woman woman is being called Miss Piggy or being called Quiet Piggy. Where are the men in the room? And look, I'm Generation X. I'm not a millennial, so I still believe in a little bit of chivalry. Where are the men to say, Mr. President, that's inappropriate? And by the way, I'm now going to ask her question since you decided not to answer it. Where's the solidarity among the journalists in the room? I can tell you where it is. They're all afraid to wind up like me and get fired. They understand that if they gang up, quote unquote, on the president, they'll look biased and they'll get in trouble. But to me, the reason Donald Trump particularly picks on black women is that when he says something to them, they say something back.
Right.
And he has a challenge with that. If you notice, journalists are being trained to not respond, Aaron. Whereas we are not, number one, raised that way.
No.
And number two, we have a backup, which is NABJ. Latina journalists have a backup, which is the Hispanic Journalists Association. If you feel you have a backup, I'm not so sure, with respect, that the White House Correspondents Association provides that kind of backup to journalists. And so I think people feel naked out there. They feel that if they answer him back, they'll get in trouble. And that's why they don't answer him back. And the reason he picks on black women in particular is because he's a racist.
Yeah. And again, being nice is not part of the job description. Their job is to hold him accountable
Correct.
on behalf of the American people. That is the job.
Thomas Paine thought that. He was just afraid to put his name on it
That's
at
right.
the time because he could have been hanged. Christina, you have argued that President Trump poses a fundamental danger. We are hearing this, a fundamental danger to American democratic ideals, and that he encourages a toxic political climate by utilizing radicalized rhetoric and media manipulation. To what end do you suspect that that is true?
So I'm going to say some things that some people might not feel comfortable with. Until white people understand the capacity of white people, we can't get out of this.
No.
We're doing all that we can, in the sense that hopefully you all are donating to NABJ, right? We can't wait until we're all Oprah-level billionaires to be philanthropists. We must all be philanthropists. So if you aren't donating to NABJ to raise a whole new generation of journalists, we need to do that. If you're not,
I was like, clap for that, yes.
if you're
I'm
not paying
assuming
for
you weren't
Joy-
clapping because you were on your phone getting ready to donate
right?
to
But you all, we can do this after this. But like, you all need to be paying for Joy's Substack and YouTube,
Yes.
right? We have to pay for independent journalists so we can actually hear the truth. I do think that there are so many white Americans who keep saying, 'cause Erin and I were just at a conference, I think what is happening is terrible, it is dangerous, it is scary. My mom and dad and uncles and brothers all voted for Donald Trump. What is your job?
Where are you?
Right.
They're not listening to the little black girl with the PhD. That is your job to unlearn, unteach them what they're being indoctrinated by every day with Fox News and all these other right-wing podcasts and television shows and YouTube channels. So I think that so many white people, one, don't understand black history, and black history is American history. So if they don't know anything about black history, they don't know anything about this country. And they don't know the depths to which Donald Trump and his ilk will actually go, and they will be on the same boat as us.
Hello.
Because when it happens, they're like, clutch my pearls, I'm not getting what I wanted. And it's like, we could have told you that. Actually, we have been telling you
told
that.
Yes.
We've been screaming it from the rooftops. And so I think that, to me, is black people are working. We are exhausted. Black women are beyond exhausted. But white people keep looking at us saying, well, what should we do? And
what are
that
you
always
gonna do?
reminds me of, my parents threw lots of parties growing up. And the one thing I was not allowed to say, when there is lots to be done before these people come, if I go up to my parents, it's like, what do I need to do? And my mother would say, look around.
That's right.
Look
I
around.
heard that earlier.
Can I just add one thing, please, if you don't
Joy.
mind, Rahima, is the verbal attacks from Trump are an irritant and they can be dangerous to our personal safety. But the real attack is what happened to Georgia Ford and Don Lemon. He goes from calling names to having journalists arrested for covering the news.
Yes.
He goes from that to having LaMonica McIver, a member of Congress, prosecuted for attempting to defend an elder who was being shoved by his secret police.
And there to ask questions about what is happening at that detention center, as is her right to do per her job.
Correct. His vulgarity, his personal vulgarity, is a horrific character flaw that is humiliating for us as a nation. But the behavior of his regime, and as Christina rightly said, the sheer corruption, there's never been a president of the United States who has personally enriched himself and his family, even off of a war he started with his friend in Israel for no reason apparently other than to enrich his sons, that we can find. This is, the media's job is to explain that.
Yes.
But if they do, they risk
There's a
arrest.
cost.
They risk punishment. And this is a government that has shot white people in the streets for protesting. And so they're trying to spread a level of fear and disgust that will cause people to curl up into a ball and withdraw and allow them to continue to steal, allow them to continue the corruption. The story is the corruption. And I hate to say it, but I do believe that corporate media is failing to tell the story.
It was said earlier, but I think it bears repeating and maybe expanding on. How do these attacks have implications beyond the individual women to whom we find assaulted? Is this a foreshadowing, if you will, of what could happen at a larger political structure? If you can be attacked by the President of the United States, can't you be attacked by a governor in a state house?
definitely.
Or a mayor
Most
in a
definitely.
city hall?
Yeah, most definitely.
Where does it stop?
Let me tell you, it's going to keep going. Look at what's happening with Kentucky. Mitch McConnell. We don't even know if he's alive or dead.
Do we
And
have
you-
an update?
We don't. Do we have
Do we
an update?
Okay.
Breaking news.
We don't
You
know.
know, here from Martha's Vineyard. We don't know. And this is the pervasiveness of corruptness, the pervasiveness of just I don't care-ness. The Republican Party has failed America. Yes, but here's the next piece. Donald Trump has put this nation in crisis. And here's the problem when we talk about major news. I'm looking around here, and some major journalists and people who led news departments are in this room. And because of Donald Trump and his disgust with black folks or people of color in media, you are not getting the truth. You're not getting the unabashed truth and the facts that you need. Things have changed. You have now got to search deep for the person that you trust and make sure, and unfortunately, it's not on mainstream media anymore. It is now in streaming. It's now in Substack. The problem is people are afraid of Donald Trump. He is a hood rat bully. No, I'm serious, from New York, who threats, well, I'm from Baltimore.
Baltimore's jumping in.
The Baltimore's jumping out. But look, hey, anyway. Well, game peeps game.
Let it out.
So no, he is a hood rat. He is the thug that he talks about with black mothers, the mothers of the football people, the black football players. He is a thug, and he has cut jobs for us in media. The stories that we would tell you in mainstream are not being told. Politics is personal, and when he says this room is a threat to that man, highly educated black people. He is taking your museum artifacts. He is taking your information. He does not care about you. If you look at the CDC, everything is erased when it comes to diversity, equity, or inclusion. No name that deals with race. We don't even have data anymore. Data is what we use in housing discrimination cases, in health issues, education. We cannot go to court and successfully win without data. This man is stripping us and raping us of everything that we once had. We have lost rights and rolled back freedom because of this man. News organizations. I'm looking at you. ABC, NBC. I'm looking at all these people around here who have been tried, true, and tested. And because these networks are afraid of a daggone lawsuit from the bully in chief, you don't realize what you are missing now because a lot of these voices and names are not on the air.
I want to jump off of that point, and Erin, you can jump in here.
Yeah.
CBS just recently eliminated its entire race and culture unit.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So this is not just, again, I keep harking back to the fact that we have got 4 women on this panel. We can talk about several others, but this is not just about black women.
No.
If you care about democracy, you've got to care about this.
Yes.
And talk to me and talk to us about what you are seeing. The National Association of Black Journalists is seeing this in real terms and numbers, the impact this is having on newsrooms.
1,000%. And listen, I appreciate you pointing that out. I was somebody, before I left to start the 19th, because political journalism is too male and too pale, and we wanted to do something about that.
Oh, male and pale.
I was at the Associated Press, where I was the country's national race and ethnicity writer for the Associated Press. I was proud to do that. I was proud of the race team that we were able to build to tell the truth and tell those stories. I'm old enough to remember when we were reckoning with what it meant to be able to tell a fuller and more honest and accurate story about who and where we are as a country. That was just a few years ago. Here we are in a climate now. Anti-DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion are no longer American values, and so all that just gets wiped off the map, right? It is a permission structure for us to say, these stories don't matter. We don't need to be talking about that stuff. We can now be, facts are up for debate. History is up for debate. That is the cumulative effect of what we are seeing happening in this country right now. And so, yeah, we had to give CBS a thumbs down award this year to say that actions like that are completely unacceptable because they are harmful not just to Black journalists, but to Black communities. When the FCC chair is going after these news organizations, trying to silence them, trying to create a chilling effect on being able to tell stories without interference from the highest levels of our government, we have to say, no, that's not acceptable. When we have people that are attempting to normalize the disparagement of Black women, what that allows, what that normalizes across society, we have to say, no, that is not acceptable. When the Washington Post clears out a newsroom, clears out scores of Black journalists, the institutional memory, the editorial, the opinion pages that have a certain perspective because of who is in the room, a sports department that is completely decimated, covering our athletes who look like us, we have to say, no, that is not acceptable. Because taken together, these acts they illustrate the attacks that we are facing as a country, as a profession. And yes, you do not have a healthy democracy without a healthy and free press, and you don't get that without truly representative journalism that is telling the truth about this country.
And what happens? Young people feel threatened, feel that, I'll say you all, didn't leave them a world and haven't given them a world that is, everything is okay. And when young people who are considering going into the business of journalism and they're finding all of these attacks against some of the most renowned and esteemed Black women journalists in this country, what do you think it does to them in terms of, maybe I need to change my thoughts about what profession I'm going to go into?
Well, hey, Rahima, let me just tell you the good news. Young people are running to this fight. They are running to this work. They want to do this work, and they want to do it with us. And thank God, because we've been at this for a minute. Right. We welcome you to come and do this work, but they want to do it. They want to tell the truth. Look at what they have lived through. Look at what they have come up in. Black Lives Matter, climate change, gun violence in their schools. They are ready to tell the truth about this country, and they just need the tools to know how to do it. And so NABJ has to be an organization that is ready to help them do that. A third of our membership, we are 4,300 strong in Atlanta last week. 4,000 journalists are members of NABJ. A third of them are students. What does that tell you? That they are excited about this work. And look, if it means that they can't do that in a legacy mainstream news outlet, they don't care. Show me how to build something. Show me how to start my own thing. I need to reach my people. They need me to tell the truth right now. They understand that.
Right.
They are just here because they want to know how to do that. And so that's what we have to be for them.
Yeah, and Rahima, I would say, as someone who has the privilege of spending time with young people on a weekly basis, I agree with Aaron. I also will say their president is Trump. So when most of my students are born, they're born well after 9/11 and into Obama's tenure. Yeah. So he doesn't really register for them. The president that they grew up with is Donald Trump, first term and now this term. Joe Biden doesn't really register in the same way. So we're looking at the president who's essentially a political arsonist, right? He starts a fire and then he puts it out. There's certain fires he started and he can't put out now. But they're excited. They're also very concerned.
Yes.
They're not going to have Social Security. This is the first generation where they're going to be worse off than every other generation. They're not going to be able to buy a home. They're going to be saddled with debt. Their parents are saddled with debt and are unemployed by and large. And so it goes on. The positive, there's always a positive, is that they are scrappy. They are not millennials with the helicopter parents. They're just they're feral children the way Gen Xers were. Yeah. It's like they're drinking out of the hose. So it's like they're actually putting two and two together. These are students where at the top of the semester, I ask them what our fire safety and gun safety rules should be. They know more than I do about certain things that have gone on. So I think that there's always a positive to it, but we have to support the National Association of Black Journalists to make sure that if someone wants to build something on their own, they can get a summer fellowship. Because I think so many of our children want to do interesting things, but they need the money over the summer.
Yes.
We don't always have someone who can actually help financially support us to do our dreams. And so this is why we need to be political philanthropists in various organizations, large and small, for individuals and people who are building things so that they can do the next generation. We always have to be thinking about someone coming up because the kids are always going to be all right as long as we sort of leave some seeds for them to actually plant themselves as well.
Joy, do you see it that way?
Well, I do. I agree, but with all of my colleagues here. But I also think we have to, it's sobering for me that this generation, as you said, you know, my husband and our kids, the president they were first cognizant of was Obama. They're in their late 20s, you know, and 30. And then Donald Trump, and with Joe Biden as this sort of short interregnum. Unfortunately for young people now, Donald Trump is a normal president to them. And this behavior, the self-enrichment, the self-dealing, the vulgarity, they don't have a standard. When we were growing up, you know, it was Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
You may not have liked him, but he was a normal-ish president. Or even Richard Nixon, if you're a bit older. You know, the Bushes, that was normal, even if you didn't like them. You know, I was very anti-George W. Bush, but he still behaved in a range of normal. Donald Trump is normalizing something truly frightening. This is a Viktor Orban style, Vladimir Putin style government, and that is what they're growing up in, which is why so many young people are leaning into things like socialism. They don't have a reverence for the old journalism or the old Walter Cronkite neutrality. They don't necessarily even expect neutrality from media. And so what media is going to have to, and I think NABJ is definitely wrestling with this, is what are we teaching these young people is normal journalism? Because I've had so many young people come up to me when I was in Atlanta asking, is neutrality still real? Is objectivity still a thing? And I've never been for it. I've always been anti-objectivity.
Well, I mean, look at the default setting is the white
white
men
man.
that created journalism.
Correct.
So, yeah, no.
It's not real.
No.
And so I think we have to have a whole new language to describe what this country is. And I think as horrific as this moment is, it's also an opportunity. We are going to have to reimagine what this country is, what journalism is, what government is, and what we expect from a president. Because the last thing I'll add is, while Donald Trump is normal president for too many young people, Zohran Mamdani is normal mayor. And responsive government is now an expectation that a lot of young people have. So I think the media in writ large has got to learn these new languages and learn how to talk about these leaders in a way that is not so old-fashioned and completely irrelevant to what's happening today.
I want to ask the audience to do me a favor. If you are 36 and under, would you raise your hand? 36 and under? All right. And we've got some younger than 36 and under. One of the things that I see as a real issue facing us is we don't have more of 36 and under. Yeah. And this room is packed, and I'm tickled black to see you all here.
Tickled black.
Tickled black. That's from my Aunt Minnie.
We got to use that.
My dear, dear Aunt Minnie. So if you use it, you have to attribute.
Yeah.
Aunt Minnie.
Listen, we will credit Aunt Minnie for that,
Minnie.
Jim.
But we are going to use it.
We are going to use it.
Yeah, and here's a reference to it. I was getting an award, and Aunt Minnie was coming with me, and it was at the Apollo, and it was an award from the National Association of Black Journalists, and I was so proud to bring my aunt and my uncle with me to witness this. And I said, I'm so tickled that I'm here, and this is going to be happening. She said, baby. I said, I'm so tickled pink. And she said, baby, you can't be tickled pink.
Oh.
But she said, you can be tickled black. And I am. I have to figure out, and I want us to look forward. How do you get your students, who some of them might be on the Vineyard? There are a lot of young people on the Vineyard. And this world is their world. It's not just yours and mine. It's their world. As you said, he is their president. They should be in this room helping us form this conversation about how do we move forward. Professor, help us.
Well, I think in this reimagining, they're probably having this conversation. They just might be at the beach. They just might be having this conversation on text.
In between that mocktail?
Right, or a cocktail. I mean, lots of great ideas happen over cocktails and brunch. But here's the thing. How they view politics is different than the way we view politics. And so my job as an educator is to help them understand politics isn't this thing over here and you live over here. So if you took the subway to class, that's politics. If you brushed your teeth in the morning and clean water came out the tap, that's politics. If you're on financial aid, that's politics. If your parents work for the government, that's politics. If you went to public school, that's politics. If you get your hair braided and relaxed and the chemicals didn't kill you, that's politics, right? So like everything is politics, every single thing. And I always say, hold up a pen. Tell me everything that's political about this pen. The plastic, the ink, the trucks
ink
that
is
brought
black.
The ink is black. But the trucks that brought it, the people who worked in the factories, were they unionized or not? Were they children or not? Is it an American factory or is it abroad? Did this pen come on an airplane or a boat? Did it bring mosquitoes? I mean, these are all the ways that we can think about even a sheet of paper. Is it from the Amazon? My grandfather on my maternal side was a logger in Jacksonville, Florida, right? So in a paper mill. Shout out, Florida.
Shout out to Jacksonville.
So
All right.
I think the thing is, and I'm always perpetually optimistic because I'm an educator, I do think that these kids are having these conversations because they are worried about their future. It might not be on a beautiful Wednesday at 5:15 sitting in a chapel. It might actually be over cocktails, to be very honest, because they are interested, and they're interesting people. This generation, I really like this generation, because this generation reminds me of our generation, because they're putting the dots together, and we just actually need to help them get the tools to put it together and give them a little guidance and remind them that this isn't the first time that they've thought about these ideas. So organizing is something that we've been doing so we can put the books and the articles in front of them.
Yeah, and I would also say to that point, if that is where they are, we have to meet them where they are too.
Yes.
Right? We can't, it is not enough for us to just invite them in. Yes, this is beautiful. I'm so happy for the young folks that made their way over here. But for the folks who didn't get to come to our convention this summer, right? What does it mean for us to reach out and be bringing them into this profession? Because again, we need them, right? And so going out to their campuses, telling them that this is work that we need you to be doing, and we are going to help show you how to do it. That's how I got my start in NABJ, right? I showed up at a chapter meeting, but we also have to get out and meet them where they are. These social platforms, so much of that is happening there. People who may never be in your classroom, Professor Greer, are seeing you because they get to see you talking about the work that you're doing. They get to hear your podcast. Joy, they are on YouTube getting the news, believe that. They're definitely getting their news from YouTube. And so what does it mean for us to be on YouTube doing that? I started a show this season. It's called Long Play. You should watch it. We're focused on winning politics in the South. We are on YouTube because we know that is where young people are. So we have to meet them where they are, whether it's at the beach, whether it's at brunch, wherever you are. Let's sit down and let's talk about how you do this work.
Absolutely. April.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. But let's look at it now. How many of you grew up watching Walter Cronkite? How many of you grew up with the UHF, VHF, and the TV went off at like 11 o'clock after the
That
late
Star
show
Spangled Banner
and the Star
started
Spangled
playing.
Banner. Okay, right. Well, guess what? That is no more. The delivery system is different. It's not just YouTube. It is TikTok.
Yes.
They are having this discussion on TikTok. How many of you, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not a TikToker that much, but how many of you are watching TikTok? How many of you on YouTube? Okay, that's still not everybody. The delivery system has changed. The people that you trust are on these streaming channels. And I know you say, I don't know how to work this smartphone, it's too smart for me. Okay. But if you want to know and you want to get the news, you've got to go there. These kids are there. We are there. I mean, I'm on YouTube. I'm on Substack. How many of you on Substack? Oh,
All right.
y'all are pitiful. You're just pitiful. But no, seriously. And as we talk about subscribing, paying into the NABJ, there's also a new thing for these journalists who are independent. It's called Subscribe. That funds the news that we give to you. Subscribing, the delivery systems are so different. Many of us are not at ABC, who's now filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for retaliation. Thank you, God. Many of them have been fired from CBS or NBC or MSNBC or MS Now, whatever the heck you want to call it. And please don't tell me you're turning over to watch Fox because you don't see it.
Let me jump in here. The only thing I would say about turning over to watch Fox is that we have a very unbalanced media diet. We watch what we think will support what we think. And you need to know what the other guy is thinking. Because when he comes for you, you want to be able to predict he's coming. But if you're not paying any attention to him and only looking at the people who agree with you, you won't see it. So a balanced media diet is just as important as having a balanced diet. And you can find it in a lot of different ways, a lot of different iterations. One of the things that I want to do is we talk about whether there's going to be defense of the press. Let me share some information with you here. The World Press Freedom Index ranking, and this is Reporters Without Borders, for the first time in its 25-year history of this ranking, over half of the world's countries now fall into the difficult or very serious categories for press freedom. In 2002, the United States, its highest position ever, was of 17 out of 180 nations. The U.S. has steadily dropped to 57th place in 2025, and it's fallen to 64th out of 180 countries in just 1 year. By the way, who's number one? Norway. Norway's number one. The executive director of Reporters Without Borders in the North American division said, President Trump is pouring gasoline on the fire in his administration's coordinated war against the press. Clinton Weissmer went on to say, the United States is facing a press freedom crisis that should concern everyone who cares about democracy. This is not about me. It's not just about you. April, this is about us.
Right, it's about us. When we're under attack, all of us, I think, have been up here under attack. But when we're under attack, you have to not see ourselves, because it's easy to say, oh, I'm viral. Oh, people are looking at me. It's not about us. It's about the larger issue. It's about information, needed information that we need. I mean, just alone, we're still finding out the damage that Doge did. You know, we didn't know fully at the beginning. We're still finding out who's going to tell that story.
Yes.
Who's going to check them, boo? So the bottom line is, at the end of the day, you have to determine, one, who you trust. Who you trust. Because there's a lot of flashy headlines out there, a lot of sensational things, a lot of things that are clickbait. But at the end of the day, you've got to figure out, am I going to stay here? Like Rahima said, I'm not espousing to turning the Fox. I'm not doing that. But I see it streaming. But I'm not giving them any ratings, no. But what I would say is, increase your diet. Increase your diet, because there's so much more out there. It's not just the networks that used to be the traditional networks or cable. It is now streaming. It is now independent journalism. I mean, Don Lemon went to jail, his numbers went up. But Don Lemon is a credible source. Georgia Fort is a credible source. All of us up here are credible sources. You have to expand your diet. Do not be afraid of your cell phone or your tablet. Go into those areas. You will find information, needed information that mainstream will not give you. Unadulterated. See, they have more editorial constraints than we do now. And they're afraid of these multi-million-dollar lawsuits. So they're going to hold back, whereas we're going to give you everything we got.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, that's absolutely true. This, what we're talking about, the impact on this, yes, there's an impact. You've heard about the impact on individual Black women journalists who are absolutely on the front lines fighting this every single day, and we will continue as the National Association of Black Journalists to fight for them every single day. But this is about your right to know. That is what is being lost here as they try to silence us, and as some folks are making it harder for us to do our jobs. And so that is why we must call this out. You all must also be a part of what it means to be empowered that you have a right to know. And so that does mean following trusted sources of information, but not only that, sharing that with the people in your lives. To Christina's point, yes, I love my auntie and uncle crew that is watching me on MS Now or subscribing to my, I appreciate that. But share that with a young person in your life. My love of journalism came because my mom let me watch the local news every single night when I was eating dinner with my brother and we talked about current events. I knew what was going on. Listen, I know that sounds analog, but you can still talk to your kids. You can still talk to your niece. You can still talk to your grandkids. What is their awareness of what's happening in this world? And they get to ask you what you think about it and share that with them and share the story that helps you understand why you feel the way that you do about something that's happening in this country right now. They are paying attention, but we're not engaging enough with each other over these issues. Journalism is a group project. We can't do this without y'all, and y'all need us to give you the accurate information about who and where we are as a country right now. So we're gonna keep doing our part. We really need you to keep doing yours. So after we leave here today, I hope that all of us can just recommit to each other to that work, because we are absolutely in relationship with you. We do this work. We stand with y'all every single day. Please continue to stand with us.
Joy, give me your take on this. Where would you like to see people come in on this conversation in order to make certain that it's not just the freedom of Black women journalists to ask the tough questions, but that the freedom of press continues?
What I would say is, when Alex Preddy was killed in Minneapolis, the woman who filmed his death immediately went into hiding. When George Floyd was killed on camera, the teenager, who was a young black girl who filmed it, was immediately faced with threats. So in this world, it is not just journalists who are gathering the news. It's ordinary citizens who are using their phones and gathering the news, and who, when it comes specifically to ICE, are increasingly under physical threat themselves. So the test case now is not just journalists and what Donald Trump specifically will do, but it's what his agents will do with their electrified gloves on the streets of our cities to any of us. In this world, almost anyone behaves in the manner of a journalist, even if they are not. That is good and it's bad. I think from NABJ's perspective, we would like more curation, maybe some editing. Not everyone who takes a video is a journalist, but everyone with a camera is a news gatherer, potentially, and therefore is a potential threat to the regime. And it isn't just about Trump, and I am so with Christina, I should call you Dr. Grimm, Professor Grimm. That's my friend, so I don't. That everything is politics. But there are also things that have nothing to do with Washington that are being missed in the kind of conversation that what we're having. Ida B. Wells, when she began as an independent journalist in the early 20th century, and imagine if the President of the United States at that time had personally attacked her. She was already getting death threats and had to leave her home and flee out of the South to save her life. What was she reporting? Black men, women, and children were being hung throughout the South. They would be found hanging, and no one would say what happened to them. No authority would investigate it. The men in particular who were hung were deemed to be criminals who had done something to cause their own deaths. These things were written off, even though they were treated as sport. They were treated as a field trip, a family field trip. People were taking parts of the bodies home and making them into items that they would collect, collectibles that were taken home, souvenirs. This was happening, and no one was saying anything. And Northern journalists were reporting in some cases on these hangings, in some cases in advance. They were treating them as something other than a crime. Ida B. Wells said that objectivity was unacceptable. And if you want to understand why Black women journalists are considered so dangerous, she insisted on a change in the behavior of the press. And once she was able to get the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times and Northern newspapers to stop treating those lynchings as something other than a crime, it actually shifted journalism in a way that by the time you get to the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, Northern journalists were going south and treating the pro-segregationists as the villains and the Black citizens of the South as the victims. This is where the notion of media bias came from. It came from white Southerners saying, well, the media is biased against our way of life. And that bore fruit eventually when Roger Ailes decided to fix that, and Rupert Murdoch by creating a whole network that would unbias the news by doing it from the point of view of conservative. That's my little media bias message. But what I would say about that is that Black women have always been at the fulcrum of truth-telling in this country. We've always been the unfiltered tellers, unfiltered storytellers about the truth of America. We've always been the unfiltered source of reality and news, even when we were not formally journalists. And that's why we're considered more dangerous. And so what I would say to everyone in this room is that each and every one of us, whether or not you're formally a journalist or a member of NABJ, you are a potential truth teller, so you're at just as much risk as we are. Everyone is at risk in an authoritarian system. And what I will say when it comes to this day and age, young men, women, Black men and women are being hung in the South. And no one is saying anything. And their hangings are being treated as suicides. And the media is replicating what Ida B. Wells faced at the time. Someone has to say, this feels non-coincidental. Not every case, maybe some cases are suicides. But where I am very concerned about journalism, without the presence of Black journalists at the Washington Post who've been moved out, Black journalists at CBS News who've been moved out, Black journalists at ABC, Black journalists at NBC, or Ms. Now, whatever she changed her name, so I go along with that, Ms. Now, or at Fox or anywhere else. Without us, who is the Ida B. Wells in those newsrooms that will look at those hangings and just ask questions because the moms don't think that they are suicides? The moms are saying something happened to my child. And it's us out here in independent media who are behaving in the Ida B. Wells formation. We're the ones saying it from outside those newsrooms. What I'm concerned about, Aaron Haynes, is that in the newsrooms, where are we to ask the general manager and the news director, shouldn't we be looking into these hangings?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm worried about that.
I want you to let your voices be heard. It's an opportunity for you to ask a question of these ladies here. I see someone over there, someone here,
Yes, come right out.
and you must do me a favor.
Yes.
You must ask a question.
No speeches.
There cannot be any speeches because we're running out of time.
Hi, I just want to thank the ladies because, Joy Reid, when you went off air, you kept me sane for like a whole year. I couldn't sleep at night. I tape your show. I love you all. I just want you to know you're prayed for and you're thought of.
Thank
and
you.
the question is, I also study, I'm one of the young people that, well, not so young, but I'm on a podcast with 30-somethings, and I trash Trump every single time.
Tell me your
Every-
question.
The question is, I want you all, can you please do a deep dive into the killings, the lynchings, because of Julian Southern Poverty Law Center. There are increase in lynchings since Trump has president. It is not just your plain vanilla KKK. There's neo-Nazis in the White House. Can you please report on the Capitol Ellipse? Who set up the lynching
We've got you.
gallows on the
We've got
Capitol
it.
Ellipse?
And-
We still don't know.
And I will say to you, sister, one thing. When you say I have a podcast, always say the name of it, because we can't subscribe to it if we don't know the name. What's the name?
That part, it's free. It's
That part.
Puerto Rican, Chinese, Black, and me, the old lady.
Thank you. Okay, that part is her podcast. Y'all please support.
So
I can tell you, go on, please.
April?
So there's been an increase, as you can see, unofficially and officially, just by looking and to get the documentation from civil rights organizations, there's an increase in the number of hate crimes in this nation because of the pervasive hate that is spewing from the White House. But at the end of the day, there is no Justice Department Civil Rights Division. There is no Civil Rights Division for that. So, and you also have a president who told the New York Times last year that the civil rights movement hurt white people. So understanding this, you already know that they're going to call it a suicide and they're not going to investigate. Look at what's going on with Nolan Wells. Today is his 19th birthday. And if it weren't for Black media pushing this narrative and covering the NAACP, the Urban League, and the NABJ, we would not, even TMZ is covering this. Yeah. Because it's so out of control, because of independent and Black media doing this. So right now, what you have to do as a citizen and as a podcaster, you have to join with us and keep pushing the narrative. You have to. That's the only way. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Oops, next question.
Tell us your first name and where you're from, and then your question.
My name is Issa. I live in Brooklyn, from Baltimore. I want to ask you to prognosticate a little bit about 2028 What are your expectations? Journalist Farai Chidea has been doing a lot of investigative work around white Christian nationalists. So we're excited about what's happening with Mamdani in Chicago and Baltimore, mayor-elect in D.C.
Do you want them
But
to
the
tell you who's
question
going
is,
to
what
run
do
for
you
president?
expect for 2028 as Black people in Black communities, in Black cities? What should our expectations be with ICE in our communities in 2028?
Yeah.
If I could just.
Can I ask the political scientists on this?
And
one?
I'll try and be brief.
Greer?
So one, we've sort of talked around this. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that has been going around, and our colleague Asosa Osa has been talking about this quite a bit. She now has an app called Aisha to help us distill some of this misinformation that is targeting our communities. So people over a certain age are on Facebook, and those ads do that, and then people of a certain age are on TikTok. So that's one. Two, Joy touched on this. We're going to have a real tense moment because how we reimagine what our next set of leadership should look like is very different within the Black community. We are a broad range, but we call it party capture in the sense that we represent the ideological spectrum. We're just by and large 90% trapped in the Democratic Party. So there's some people who are like, no, we want, once Trump is gone, we just want to go back to like just the way it was. Like let's just go back to sort of, we need a reset president the way Biden was supposed to be, and then we can think about things. Other folks are like, no, let's not go back. We have to sort of reimagine something right now and go that forward. And then there's going to be the third group that's like, rip it all down from the studs. So those are very different ways of thinking, right? Hakeem Jeffries can't even say Mamdani's name. So when we think about Black leadership, and we've talked a lot about executive level leadership in Washington, D.C., I believe in local media and local politics. That's where the action is. That's where a lot happens in our state houses, things that really affect us, whether or not, your schools, your roads, all these other things. So I think 2020, the crop of candidates, obviously if Kamala Harris runs, there's going to be a lot of conversations about race, gender, and the intersectionality. There are
We should hope.
Yes,
Should
we
hope.
should hope. But we have to also have honest conversations. There are going to be a lot of Black people who don't want Kamala Harris for a host of reasons. And there are going to be some people who don't want Kamala Harris just because they don't want a Black woman or a Black person or a woman. So right now we're in a muddled mess. I would like us to get past the midterms in 2026, and then I think the vision becomes a teeny bit more clear.
Yeah, I think I
say this. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'll make my ears.
I mean, look, what I would say, because for NABJ, we have to think about not only y'all's ability to vote safely, but what it means for our journalists to be able to cover you voting safely, right? The gutting of the Voting Rights Act means that people are absolutely galvanized to head to the polls in November. I'm seeing it. I'm traveling across the South reporting right now. I know that Black people are ready to make their voices heard in November. What does that look like? The president had already threatened to deploy the National Guard, declare a state of emergency ahead of the 2026 elections. We've seen what's happened when journalists have tried to cover protests. That is part of our job, to cover these ICE protests that have been happening across the country. What does that mean? That means that Don Lemon and Georgia Ford are arrested. My members are asking me, what does that mean for me? Is that something that could happen to me? What can NABJ do? So we have to think about what it means. Lawyers in the room, shout out to you. If you want to help stand with us as these people in their communities are being targeted. I mean, yes, Don Lemon, God bless him. He's got resources. Even he is worried about his ability to fight and what this case is going to mean for him. So think about a local journalist in a community that could be caught up in some of this. We already know it's our people that are going to be covering these elections because that is what we do. We care about this. We care about making sure that y'all have the honest and accurate information to be able to participate in this democracy. But what does it mean when there's retaliation for that? What does that mean when folks possibly could be getting arrested? So we have to get ready right now because, if you get ready, you don't have to stay ready. You don't have to get ready when the time comes because the time we are worried that it is coming and what it is going to mean, not just for Black America, but for the Black journalists that are trying to tell the story of this country.
I want to take another question.
I'm sorry, Rahima, before we take the next question, I just want to give a shout out to our Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, who was just entered.
Where is she?
Oh.
With her husband, Conan Harris. All right. We'd like to hear your first name, where you're from, and your question.
Hi, Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for being here and sharing so much of your brilliance with us. I'm Trinity Webster Bass. I'm a recent graduate from Howard University.
Yes.
You know.
You know.
And I've also, just a couple months ago, landed my first job in journalism as a K-12 education reporter in Jacksonville, Florida. And my question, so this evening we've heard from each of you a lot about what it means to have this sort of unflinching courage and how to remain steady within all the backlash and the vitriol that Black women experience within media. And I'm curious to know, how did you covet that unflinching courage? How did you maintain it? And how do you expect young Black journalists to do the same?
I love that question.
April.
So let me say this. You don't know what you will do until you are faced with a situation. And my mother and my father, I'll never forget the first day I went to the White House. My father prayed, said, Lord, let her take her home training with her. Yeah. I mean, when you come from a Black middle-income family from Baltimore, and you didn't grow up with a silver spoon, working class family, for your child to be covering the White House, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Right? So one thing, decorum is always, that place is about decorum, even though the way it looks now. I came in the second term of Bill Clinton. Yes, even during that time, there was supposedly still decorum. Monica Lewinsky was one of the big stories when I first came. But decorum is always in that place. It's a respect for the office, respect for the presidency. It's not about the man, it's about the office, it's about the people. And the issue is not about me, it's about the answer to the question that I ask. And if you always keep that focus, but when people come after you, like I said in that book, I did nothing wrong. It's not only the First Amendment, but it's also the Kerner Commission report that said that we should be, Black journalists should be in spaces to help lessen the tension, the racial tension in America. Asking a simple question about a community with the highest numbers of negatives in almost every category, and I get death threats and a bomb. What are we living in? This is not the Hunger Games. No, seriously. I did nothing wrong. So that's where I started, but I have a therapist every Wednesday at 8 o'clock.
Shout out to therapy.
Right? And I do self-care. And I got a good husband and some good children that love me up. And I got my ride or dies, and that's all I need. But as long as you know, and you have people who tell you the truth. You don't need yes men, but you have people who in your life that tell you the truth. And you don't know what you will do until you face. People talk about, well, why didn't you do this? You should have done that. No, you don't really.
You don't know.
I have the Black, anytime I'm in that room, and all those meetings, I have the Black community on my shoulders. If I started doing all this, they would say, see. The weight of one journalist carries the weight of everyone in that White House, unfortunately.
That's right.
I want to say something about all of that. There's a famous Black journalist. His name is Vernon Jarrett. And Vernon Jarrett was one of the members of the National Association of Black Journalists. And I was at a meeting one time, and there were a lot of young people who were up-and-comings in this business. And Vernon Jarrett sat there and he said, I've been where you are, and I am where you're going. But it is with belief in God and with your roots in the ground and faith in your community, Vernon Jarrett was able to become one of the most distinguished journalists of all time. So April was telling you all about that. You can do it.
Yes.
You are.
I've been where you are, and we are where you're going.
Absolutely.
Next question.
Tell us your first name, where you're from, and your question.
Thanks. Elizabeth Clay-Roy from New York, and I provide civic education and media literacy to middle and high schoolers across the country.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And they have been hearing the refrain of fake news all their lives. And so the trust in media continues to fall. And now we have AI. And I'm interested in your perspectives on how generative AI is going to impact access to credible sources and what you say to younger viewers about how they should decide what to trust.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that, and thank you for that question. One, you know, we keep talking about distrust, you know, a loss of trust in media. What I think that we are, bless you, seeing is a recalibration of trust, right? Yes, there are people who deeply distrust the media, but they also deeply do trust certain journalists, newsletters, podcasts, local outlets that they are reading. And so what does it mean to be in relationship with community? What does it mean to earn that trust story by story? Like, that is the work that journalists I think that journalists have to do now. We can't just expect or assume that that trust exists. We know that that trust doesn't exist, particularly among young people. So, you know, media literacy is absolutely important. We can't, though, just depend on everybody to be a misinformation detective. We have to also be transparent about what our process is, so that we are, doing our part to also earn that trust. The other thing I will say to your point about AI, we talked about AI at our convention just this last week in Atlanta. The thing is, you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to the person who knows how to use AI.
Ooh.
Okay, and so AI is here. It is not the future. It is here. It is shaping so much across our society, including journalism. And so what does it mean for us to be shaping what AI is going to be? You already heard Dr. Greer talking about Aisha. I encourage everybody to get familiar with that platform, start using it.
Yes.
Because the other thing about that is, this is why the trusted messengers matter so much. Truth is going to be its own kind of currency. Part of our jobs as journalists is going to be not just to tell people what's happening online, but to be able to tell them if what is happening online is even real. That's where this is going. So, yeah.
I'm going to try and get a question.
I know.
from
I'm
I'm going
somebody
to pass
over
the
here.
mic down to this gentleman for his question. Make sure you pass the mic back.
Uncle Henry.
My name is Henry Pruitt, and I come from the great city of Teaneck.
Yes.
Now,
Teaneck.
I have to ask a question, but I want to say something before that. That is, how do we teach the younger people about the history?
Mm-hmm.
It's about to be taken out of the books and out of classes and so forth. And secondarily, how do we get black organizations to celebrate their blackness rather than their particular mission? I think that's enough.
Dr. Greer?
So I'll start with the first part. I've always been covert about it, just because I'm a black person who is in media. Joy and I always debate. I'm like, I'm not a journalist. Joy's like, you write columns and you got a podcast. You're a journalist.
You just don't want to get your dues in.
And listen, I pay I'm a member of NABJ. I'm a member. But I do think that, my courses don't necessarily say race, but every single class is about race. I can't talk about George Washington without talking about the number of enslaved Africans he had, and we're not going to learn about George Washington if I don't tell them about Ona Judge.
Yes.
And how he didn't have dentures, he had the teeth of his enslaved Africans in his mouth, right? So when we talk about the founding fathers, I call them the framers. So every part of American politics, which is my specialty, if you understand America, you have to talk about race. Yes. Every single policy in America is built on race or racism or a combination of the both. Where we live is based on racism. The roads that go through our communities or don't go through our communities, we're the New Yorkers, right? If you've ever been on the 1, 2, 3, 4 bus, right? It goes down Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, but it goes right up to Harlem, so everyone can clean those houses and go right on back to where they're living. Like, all these things are political, right? Transportation is political. The air is political, right? Where certain communities don't have trees and others do. So I think that there are ways that those of us who care about the history of this nation and the truth about the history of this nation will do so. But when I teach Intro to Politics, it is an intro to race politics, because if I'm talking about America, I'm talking about racism, and I'm talking about race because we must. We have literally been here since the 1600s. The oldest mosque in the country is in Brooklyn. Started in the 1600s. So these are conversations that I'm having with my students so that they can also see themselves in the lineage of the ebbs and flows of progress and regress of this nation. And we're in a regressive moment, but to help them understand, it's like, yeah, we've been in lots of regressive moments, but we've come out of them. And I know that this one is different, and I know that this president is different, but he's also not the only person out of the 360 million of us in this nation. So, I know he's a eugenicist, so he likes to talk about his good genes. And so to the young lady's question earlier, it's like, we have better genes. I'm not afraid of this man, We are divinely protected. We've always been divinely protected in this country, even with the ebbs and flows. And we're just in a nadir right now, but collectively, we know how to get out of these. And we just have to figure it out technologically on how to do so.
Yeah.
So I think that there are a lot of people who are doing things in classrooms without ringing the alarm that they're doing them.
Yeah.
All right.
And I mean, look, we're the National Association of Black Journalists. Ain't no way around it. That's who we're going to be. We celebrated Black excellence in Atlanta, 4,300 journalists. That's who's at our back every single day when we go into those newsrooms. That is because we know that we do this collectively. Even if you go back to your newsroom and you might be the only one, or you might be one of a few, you know that there is an organization that is standing up and saying, Black excellence is absolutely part. You don't have the American story without what we do.
All right, we'll have another question. Tell us your first name, where you're from, and your question.
Hi, my name is Simone. I'm 19 and I'm from Baltimore. Hey, what? Sorry.
Baltimore.
My question is, I'm Gen Z. I was born in 2006, and I'm about to be 20 years old. What you said about us growing up with like gun violence in school and whatnot, I also want you to, I had a question about censorship and stuff like that. Because now that TikTok is bought by Americans, it's been a lot of censorship on that app, number one, compared to when it was with the Chinese. So my question is, how do you guys feel about being censored towards all the stuff that we talk about? And secondly, my other question is, Jimmy Kimmel got his show revoked and then brought back. So how do you guys feel though you guys got your show revoked and never got it back on mainstream television compared to him?
She said Jimmy Kimmel.
All right.
Jimmy Kimmel got his show.
All right, Simone.
The previous point about where
You might have a future in journalism. You need to come on down here.
Right, you need to get on the panel.
What you doing next?
I will just say, as somebody who is on TikTok, I got off of Twitter, but I'm still basically on TikTok, and I can tell you that is absolutely true. The Ellisons, who have a very particular worldview, who have also now owned CBS News and are they're forcing that worldview onto everything from 60 Minutes to CBS Nightly News. They also own TikTok. They're soon going to own CNN. I can tell you there's also lots of censorship and shadow banning on Meta, which would be on Instagram and Threads, the same thing. And so what's happening is the consolidation of not just mainstream media outlets, but social media outlets under a small number of very far right-wing billionaires is a threat. That's just reality. And we do not, in this moment, although there are people who are trying to develop it, we don't have Black-owned versions of those apps. And so even those of us who are on YouTube and Substack, they could break bad at any time and start censoring us as well. And we all live in a universe where we're using their media to do our work. And so that's just a reality. So until we can get a few Black billionaires to like buy, Black Planet or, BET. We don't even own BET. Black Entertainment Television is owned by the Ellisons as well, right? They own Paramount, CBS. They own Nickelodeon, BET, everything. So a lot of our media is being consolidated under a very small number of men who are far right-wingers who want to do business with the regime. So to your point, that's the world. And so what we have to do is to navigate that world and be creative about the way we talk about the things that we want to talk about. A lot of people are getting their history from TikTok. They're using TikTok as an educational tool almost. There are people who are doing like school on TikTok. You can still do that and still take advantage of it, but just always understand the environment you're in and the politics of the people who own it. And if you choose to stay on those apps, just be judicious about the way, as Christina was saying, the creativity with which you say what you're saying so that you don't lose your account. And as to the Jimmy Kimmel of it, Jimmy Kimmel got his show back because the people rose up and demanded it, and they threatened to effectively defund the local news outlets by withdrawing their eyeballs, and it was going to destroy a lot of local television networks if he didn't get his show back. So I'm actually glad that he got his show back. It's actually a Black woman who led that campaign because they had been doing work for years inside of the Disney fan community to make sure that they could impact ABC. Now, for me personally, I don't want my show back because I don't want those bosses back over me. I like working for me. I won't fire me and I won't censor me. Me and my husband own my company, and I like my new boss, so I don't want my show back.
I gotta. Joy, I understand you have more eyeballs on Substack than you did on MSNBC.
Give us the update on the
Thank you.
Substack
Thank you.
subscribers, Joy. How many Substack subscribers we got
So
now?
we have 210,000 on Substack, and we are just under 500,000 on
Get her
YouTube.
across the finish line on
So,
YouTube,
yes.
people. If
We're
you're not
4,000
subscribed,
away from 500,000 on YouTube, so please subscribe. Tell a
and
friend.
tell 10 friends.
Tell 10 friends.
Let me just ask a quick question here, because I've been getting a question from in the audience, and it's about those who work in corporate media. And let's get real. There's some concern about those journalists who do work in corporate media. As you say, you don't want those bosses, but not everybody's going to be able to do and have the kind of success that you have had on Substack. What do you say to what is the role that those corporate journalists can play in a newsroom to help the cause, and at the same time, hold on to their jobs so they can pay their mortgage?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're seeing it. We have got journalists and communities across this country that are doing their jobs every single day. They are still fighting to tell the stories for our communities every single day. We have, we honor those journalists every single year. Every single headline that I look at, when we are recognizing those journalists and their excellence, I know what it took to get those stories out. They're doing that work every single day. To the extent that we have representation in our newsroom leadership in those corporate newsrooms, I know that so many of them are also doing the work of pushing and pushing, right? Some of these white gatekeepers to make sure that not only do we have a seat at the table, but that we are also shaping the agenda, because that matters, right? When you have somebody that is still asking those questions about what is happening with these ICE protests, what is happening with Nolan Wells. You know, we brought Nolan Wells' parents to NABJ. That means that those journalists can go back and say, hey, we need to follow up on this story. They can go back to their newsrooms armed with knowing that this is a story that Black people, the Black community still cares about what happened here. 5 years ago, that would have been national news. Why isn't it more national news now? It takes those of us who are continuing to push, and so it does matter, and it is why we are fighting for, our representation as we are seeing it being eroded. We are saying that it matters. It matters that those consolidations are disproportionately affecting us.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Marie. I'm from San Diego, but I live in New Jersey and work in the city.
Do you live in Teaneck?
New York City. My name is Marie.
No, do you live in Teaneck?
I don't live in Teaneck. I live in Bergen County, like Hasbrook Heights, if you're familiar with that area.
All right, I'm just messing with you.
All right. I appreciate you ladies here, especially April and Joy as Independence. I know you because I watch a lot of the YouTube. I appreciate you being here. And one thing I would just want to put a bug in your ear, ladies, as journalists, that there are producers behind the scenes
yes.
making you guys look pretty good there a few times, Don Lemon and all. And I appreciate the fight for the front facing, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of things going on that people may not understand. And there are producers, Black producers, they're struggling to make sure that you guys look good and that you get the information you need. And what I want to say is, can you speak on this? What maybe an idea that you might have for supporting the behind-the-scenes producers, because that's where the mentorship comes for the young adults, is behind the scenes with the producers that are available to them.
I will tell you that is a great question, because I think even when I was doing a TV show at the former MSNBC, our full staff was 60 people. I had 14 producers. So I would wake up in the morning and have a brilliant thought and write up my little A block and send it and be like, make it into TV, poof. And all of a sudden they would put the video to it. People forget about the whole crew and all the people behind the scenes. Right now, there are not just a lot of unemployed anchors and reporters. There are a lot of producers.
Because those teams are affected by that, yeah.
They're all being laid off. And so we have, on the Joy Reid Show, we have scooped up some of the people that I actually worked with at my former job who were also swept out. And, we're a much smaller team. We're a team of 8 as opposed to 14 producers. But it's still very necessary, to your point, to have writers, producers, people who can do the tech work. So if you are a person that's working in mainstream journalism and lose your job, not everyone can form a Substack.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to be able to have a Substack that can make them any money. And not everyone has the money to subscribe to 1,000 Substacks. People have limited budgets. So I think what we need, and I would love for NABJ to be at the heart of this, we need an ecosystem, and I know that Aaron is working on this to this day. There has to be a full ecosystem of opportunity that is not just in mainstream news outlets, but training people to be digital producers, not just TV producers. There are people who formerly were in radio. My other podcast, Read This, Read That, myself and Jackie Reed, one of our producers is a former radio producer. So we in independent media, Don Lemon is hiring right now. He was hiring while he was at NABJ. We are now a source of employment, potentially, for journalists who are matriculating out of mainstream media. And it is not just employment of on-air people that are putting their face to camera, but also people behind the scenes. Thank you for bringing that out.
All right. So really quick for me, I work for, I'm a quasi-independent journalist, work for The Contrarian, a nonprofit organization. It's about 7 people. They're expanding, so I don't know. That's one good thing. But when it comes to my own independent work, my husband and I are doing it together. So he is, he likes the teamwork. So I'm like, hey, let's make it work. So
should they call him?
Not right now.
Okay.
But we're working on it.
That word.
And that's what it means
building.
to support. You're not just supporting them when you support independent journalism. You're supporting what else they can empower and expanding that ecosystem. So
And
that's
by
such
the
a
way,
good
it
point.
costs money. And
That's
that's
what I
one of the things
support.
that, right, that we, people think you're doing a Substack and it's, sort of you wake up in the morning, you write some things and it's, no, the having a team costs money. And we want to be able to provide good wages and health care and all of the things you could get at a media outlet that was much larger. So the support that people give, know that it goes to really employing journalists, to allowing journalists. Contraband Camp, which is our friend Michael Harriot, he is paying writers more money in some cases than they could get writing freelance for Newsweek or some other outlet. So we are actually creating an employment pool, but we need investment in our companies, like the Tucker Carlsons of the world get. The Megyn Kellys come out of these mainstream media outlets, and people are throwing money at their companies. And these Black-owned independent media companies, we're having to do a lot more begging and a lot more searching to find people who will invest in our companies the way they invest in these white-owned independent media companies. So know that that's a thing. If you know somebody that works on Wall Street or that's a financier, tell them they should start funding these very successful Black-owned independent media companies.
Can I say something really fast, just really fast? Do you realize during the Trump administration with this anti-DEI, anti-woke, Black media lost 80% of its advertising dollars?
The NMPA.
Yeah, NMPA. And other Black, not just NMPA, but other media that's front-facing Black audiences, et cetera, they're losing advertising dollars because the man at the top is like, no, no, no. So it's important that you subscribe, that you participate, all of that.
I'm going to ask, we're going to get one more question, and I'm going to challenge our panelists to do something really quick in a lightning round. And that is, I want you to tell this audience something that they do not know. A lot of people come into this room because they know each one of you. I want you to, and you can pick the area with which you want to share, but something that they will walk out of here and say, I found out something today that I did not know when I walked in here. So we're going to take a question. That's one of those things you're going to be thinking about. And it's going to be a lightning because they're telling me to wrap this up. And Karen's going to get that last question.
All right, our last question.
Hello, thank you guys for being here. My name is Cherise Scott Rollins. I'm a third-generation local islander.
Yes.
And I'm also the founder of Voices by Cherise, the first Black-led editorial with the Martha's Vineyard Times.
All right.
Amazing.
Yes, you guys can subscribe. Please subscribe.
Hello.
I write about Black, Indigenous people of color on the island, and my question is, for the next generation coming behind you, what have you learned about how to do this work without allowing that price to silence you or change who you are?
And this is going to be a quick response to her question, and then you're going to tell us something we don't know. April?
For the young people, I would not major in broadcasting in school. I would major in law, English, government, or something, and minor in broadcasting.
Okay.
Something they don't know about.
Something they don't know. Bill Clinton told me when I first started covering the White House, race is on the table always. But at issue, other things tend to move forward because of the people around.
Something they didn't know when they walked into this room. Aaron?
Wait, you made me forget her first question.
Should I go to Joy while you?
No, I want to know. Tell me again the advice for the young people. Yes. that you are already enough. You already got the lesson, because you are, you're out here, you've got this editorial voice, you're on the vineyard. You already know that you have something to say and that you have expertise to bring to this business right now, right? I don't know that I was so busy trying to learn, and yes, I want you to be a sponge and I want you to learn everything you can about this craft and this business, but also know that you have value and you have so much to contribute right now in terms of how you can help not only your community here, but even beyond, to understand the country that we are in and what we know about what is happening and how that informs where we are. So just don't forget that. Keep doing what you are doing, because other young people are seeing you and they know that they can do what you are doing right now. They don't have to wait. They can start right now and they can do exactly what you're doing. A thing that people don't know about me. Everybody knows I'm from Atlanta, but you may not know that I'm writing a book about Atlanta, and that is because it is my hometown. I will tell anybody within 2 minutes that is where I'm from, and it is why I'm so proud to be from there is because we know something about power. There's been a 50-plus year unbroken line of Black political power, and it informs every single thing that you love about Atlanta. If you love the culture, if you love the entertainment, if you love the sports, like it is. The way Atlanta people may move different, and you may not understand why, but you're going to understand when I get finished with this book.
All right.
Excellent, excellent. Talking about print journalism, I want to shout out Ron Mitchell, who is the owner and editor of New England's largest Black-owned newspaper, the Bay State Banner.
All right.
He's in the space. And you wanted me to...
I wanted you to ask Aaron to talk about how people in the room can support NABJ beyond this moment. My name is Deborah, and I'm a 40-year NABJ member.
And Hall of Fame inductee into the National Association of Black Journalists last week. We are so proud of you. Ron, thank you for your service at the Bay State Banner. That means a lot. So, how can you support NABJ? NABJonline.org. You can donate to NABJ. If you are a journalist and not yet a member of NABJ, come and be with your family where you are celebrated and not tolerated. Join us at our convention next summer. We will be in Houston, August 4th through the 8th, and share Black journalism. If you are following journalists in your life that you like, it costs you nothing to hit share on the stories that they are doing, to share with the people in your network who believe in the work that we are doing. Make sure when you see these stories where we are under attack that you talk about it and you push back against that so that people know you are not accepting of that just as we are not accepting of that. So thank you.
Joy, tell us something that we did not know when we walked in this room.
Something about me or in general?
You pick. About you or an issue, but be brief. Let people take away something today that they say, I did not know that.
Also, I'll tell you something that you didn't know about media potentially. Roger Ailes, you know, founded Fox News, right? He also founded MSNBC. And when it was founded, it was called America's Talking, and the only OG cast member there was Chris Matthews, and Tucker Carlson used to work there. The media, there is no liberal media. There's just the media business. Don't get it twisted.
Doctor?
I do want to just quickly respond to the young woman's question. One, like, what should young people be doing? Read. It's becoming a lost art.
Yes.
And then Al Sharpton said this years ago, I'm a birder. That's one of the fun facts that you'll find out. But when you see geese flying, they fly in that triangular formation. And that head goose takes all of the headwind. And they take all of the pressure. But they can't do that forever, going from Canada down to Florida, South America. So when you see them go to the back, that's because they're resting, and somebody else steps up and takes the headwind. So as Black women, we're used to being that head goose. But to another young woman's question, when you have a squad and a crew, they help you remember that you don't always have to be that front part of the triangle. My best friend from Tufts is here. And so the fun fact is, the Omegas say friendship is essential to the soul, but I would argue that birding is essential to the soul.
Amen.
Two things that I'm thinking about as we bring this to a close. Number one, I'm thankful for all of you being here. Number two, I want to say something about read. In the more recent Nation's Report card, something like 65% of our third graders could not read at third grade level. Did you know that? Did you know that we learn to read from 0 to third grade, and from 4th grade on, we read to learn? If we have not been taught to read by the 3rd grade, you are going to have a very difficult time reading to learn. If you have any opportunity in your life to help a child learn to read, help us, help them, help America by teaching our children to read. The other thing that I want to say to you is we were talking about Ida B. Wells and people wondering, are we at a most difficult time ever? Ida B. Wells was born in 1862, and she became a civil rights leader. And you know what? It was tough when Ida B. Wells was doing that. She confronted Jim Crow laws. There's nobody that told you you could not sit in the front of this chapel and you had to be relegated to the balcony. Nobody. And I want to remember my Simmons alum and one of the greatest journalists of our time, who was a black woman, and her name is Gwen Ifill.
Yes.
Gwen said, "Don't let anyone tell you the world is worse than it's ever been. It just keeps changing. It's just that there are new, deep breaths you have to take every single day." I want to thank these ladies for taking these deep breaths with us, for you taking the deep breaths. And the last thing is a call to action. When I was working in television in Boston at Channel 7, one of the things our news director said to us, do you know if you get one email from a viewer, it represents 10,000 viewers. One email is 10,000 viewers. Google it. You have a voice. And whether you think you do or you think you don't, either way you are right. And the question becomes, what are you going to do with your voice? I thank you for being here. I will be looking to see and to hear your voice.
Rahema Ellis, April Ryan,
to this panel.
Aaron Haynes, Joy Reid,
very
Professor Christina Greer. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Would all NABJ members please step forward to the stage for a photograph? NABJ members, if you could come up front for a photograph. I know some of our speakers have other engagements. NABJ, quickly to the front. Thank you for attending the Charles Ogletree Public Forum Series. We're so glad that you were here with us this afternoon.